You're listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. I'm your host, Pat Guyette. Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow.
This episode is brought to you by Heron Hill Winery. Go to heronhill.com, make sure that they deliver to your state, and use code HS5 at checkout for an additional 5%. I'm really excited about this podcast. I got to sit down with Timmy Bolduc, who is just a really great up-and-coming tracker. He specializes in tracking big 200-plus pound heavy-bodied whitetails in northern New Hampshire and Maine and anywhere where you get a lot of good snow and you can get those real big-bodied deer. But he's a great bow hunter too, and he's already tagged out in New Hampshire with 2 great bucks with his bow, including a 196-pound 10-pointer that we talk about. He gets into how he drew inspiration and learned from Hal Blood and the Benoits out of Vermont, and has used what he has learned to become one of the best trackers around these days, and he wants to share that knowledge with you, so let's get into it. All right, sitting here in my garage with Timmy Bolduc, drove down from New Hampshire. Really appreciate it, dude. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited to get into this. I mean, I was at Timmy's the other night for the premiere of his video. What's it called?
What is it? 11, 15, 19.
11, 15, 19 is the date he shot that buck last year, and it's on the Big Woods Bucks channel. Just an incredible deer. Like you said, it's got baseball bats coming out of his head.
Yeah, that was a fun night. I appreciate you coming down. It was a big night for me, for sure.
You're now a celebrity.
Well, it's
movie star.
It's a weird deal. It feels weird just because it doesn't seem that long ago I was the dude driving 3 hours to go listen in on a Benoit seminar or a Hal seminar, and now here we are. It's just a little humbling to be on the other side of that.
So that is how you got into tracking. When did you first start looking into it and reading the books and going to the seminars?
Yeah, so it was probably I don't know the exact year, but probably right around 99-ish, somewhere in there. And how it all happened was it was just a buddy of mine. He's like, "Hey, you ever heard of these guys, the Benoits from Vermont?" And I said, "No, I never heard of them." And he showed me what he had. I think it might have been a book or something like that. And it was really this simple. I was a deer hunter already. I obviously had a thing. We all want to kill a nice buck. And I saw the pictures of these bucks that these guys had. And it just clicked to me. It was like, well, that makes sense. I mean, look at the proof is in the pudding. Look at the bucks these guys get. And they get them in the Northeast and where we hunt anyway. So I just dived into it and dug into it and learned as much as I could. Watched all their videos and read the books and all that stuff. And it was, if I remember right, I feel like it might have been in the springtime is when I first heard about them. And of course that gave me all spring, summer, and by fall, like I said, I had just kind of taken in all the knowledge I could.
Had you been a hunter before all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was more like, this right here, hunting around the house.
And a lot with your bow and stuff.
Yeah, a lot with the bow. We did a lot of gun hunting, but we grew up, we did a lot of pushing and stuff like that. My dad would have us do pushes for him, and we do that kind of hunting and stuff. And yeah, I was just kind of finding my nook,
How old were you at that point when you started following those guys and learning about it?
Oh, I probably was right around my early 20s.
Yeah.
Somewhere right around in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just clicked, and it turned out I just happened to be kind of designed for it and had the traits for it, and I loved it. And Hal talks about it's one of those deals, so you either love it or you hate it. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot in between, and he's kind of right about it, and I loved it. I loved it from day one. And I got lucky on the first deal too. So I did that all summer and spring and learned everything I could, and the very first buck track I ever took, I got the buck. And
wow.
So I was like, wow, this works, And then that was in Maine, and then the following weekend I went back up to my camp because my camp is on the border of Maine and New Hampshire. And so now I had a New Hampshire tag left, and the second buck I ever buck track I ever took, I got that buck too.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, so it was just one of those deals, and I know there was some luck in there. It wasn't because, he's so good. It was none of that, but I just,
it confirms it that, you can get him this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I had my cousin Ty was with me actually on the very first one, and he was just wasn't dressed right, and I ended up getting, quarter of a mile ahead of him, and I shot that buck, and that was the first thing I said to him. Like after I shot it, he finally came up, and I was like, "Man, I can't believe it, but it actually works."
Now, at that point, were you just taking any track, or were you already good at identifying a bigger track versus a juvenile and all that stuff?
No, the one I was on, the one I ended up shooting, I actually started on a bigger track, and I got messed up, and I got onto another buck that had came across his trail, so I flipped over on the other one, not knowing, and I was a little more naive now. I know obviously a whole lot more now, but yeah, so I got on the wrong track, and and it was fresh. But the buck that I initially was on, the first one, was a lot bigger buck. But I just got switched off of it, and I realized it after it was all done. I knew it was a different one. But through the years now I've got a lot more under my belt. Now I've got it pretty dialed. Like I can tell, how they walk and how they're built.
And now you're more picky, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. For sure.
Yeah. Chris was talking about how you're one of the more picky guys, right?
Yep.
When it comes to a track.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are you looking for? What is the ideal track for you? Like, how do you explain it to somebody?
Yeah, so it's going to be, the bucks in the Northeast. It's a little easier than in other places, like for instance Ontario.
Yep.
Our bucks up here, they have big feet, and so you get a big old buck, and he's going to have big feet on him. But it gets a little more detailed than that when you're digging into the details of what how big he actually is, and that's going to come down to his stagger and his stride. So it's not so much his foot size. Again, he's going to have a big foot on him, but I kind of broke it down. There's like a couple different builds. I've got both. You're going to have a mature buck he's going to have a really wide chest and a lot of stagger between his tracks, distance between his tracks, but he might be short backed. He's not going to have a long stride. And I can't tell you the measurement on the stride. I do it off of how I walk.
Yeah.
And I'm going to step past that next track. And so he's
a stocky buck.
Yeah. So when you shoot those deer, you walk up to him, and they're going to have a big, massive neck on him. He's going to have a huge chest on him, and you're going to think like this thing weighs 280 pounds. But if you stand over him and look at him, they got a shorter back on him. So, but then the other one is going to be a little bit narrower in his chest, and he's not going to have as much stagger, but his stride is going to be long. And to be honest with you, those are the bucks right there that weigh usually better than the other.
The long ones.
The longer ones, yeah. Yep. And if you get a long strided deer, so a long back deer with that wide stagger that some of those shorter ones have, that's your monsters. But to be honest with you, Pat, I've only ever seen, two or three of those, three of them maybe in my life.
Did you kill any of them?
Nope. Never got a chance to track either one of them. One of them, the biggest buck track I ever found, that was actually up in Maine. I was with Mark Woodman, the owner of Woodman Arms, and we had taken another road and went up and checked this road, and by then it had broke light, but we went up there, checked this road. It was a right-hand turn off of the main road, and we ran up in there and checked it, and it killed whatever it was, 20 minutes, half hour. By the time we got back out, I turned back onto the main drag, continued down, and there was that monster. And that buck, somebody else had come along in the time that I was up in that other spur road, and he was on the track, so I couldn't take it. But that buck just, every step he took, his feet just flattened out and turned up and turned out, and he had a big long stride, and it was just, to this day, like I've seen so many through the years now, and like knowing now what I know now, like the truth, like if I've ever seen a 70 pound buck track, that was it. Right?
That's what I was going to ask you next. Yeah. Is what those tracks that you're talking about? Is it 270, 280 pound buck? Because the ones that you've got in your wall are all huge bucks. They're big bucks. They're over 200 pounds. That one last year, that's the video. People got to go watch it. That one was what, 217. And that's a big one. What's the difference between his track and the monster?
So the biggest thing is...
was he short and stocky, or was he a long deer?
No, so he was a longer deer, but here's another little bit of info. When you have a really heavy deer... The snow, and I've almost found it almost doesn't even matter what kind of snow it is. It can be dry snow, it can be wet snow, it doesn't matter. But the snow will react differently underneath the weight of a buck that weighs 270 pounds versus 220 pounds. And I can see that when they walk. Like, I can just tell what the snow does. And a lot of times what it does is he's so heavy that he compresses it down, and a lot of times it'll stick to the bottom of his foot. And I'm sure you've seen it with the right snow. It sticks to the bottom of the foot, and sometimes you'll have this little casting of the bottom of his track sitting right out there. Well, one of those big ones, almost every step he takes, that will happen. And I don't care if it's dry snow or wet snow, doesn't matter.
Yep.
And also his feet, like that 217 pounder, his feet didn't really splay out when he stepped.
Yep.
He had a big track on him, but they didn't splay. The big ones that I'm talking about, those 250 plus pound bucks, those ones, every step they take, their feet just spread apart and splay out. I call them splatter track.
Too much weight to carry it.
That's what it is. It's just, for the size of his foot and just his bone structure, they can't handle that weight, and it pops right out. Like, I can see it now, and the only reason I'm getting better at it is because I've tracked a lot of these bucks. So I start, it's like a fingerprint. You follow a buck for a day, and you're gonna know. Yeah. I mean, I could hop right onto another one and know that, like, within a few feet that I'm not on the same one. Might be the same size, but I can just tell the way they walk.
A little bit of forensics too.
Yeah, exactly. So and I've been lucky enough that I've got enough of these bucks, and I'm starting to break it down where, I can tell the difference if it's 210 or 230 or 250 plus.
Yep.
So.
You can hear my cat meowing at the door there. Hopefully he goes away.
That's all right.
All right, here's a little pro tip for you guys, and this is probably the most important tip that I can give you as a hunter. Whether you're a new hunter or you're a veteran hunter, this is something that is going to go a long, long way into helping you kill deer. So make sure you're paying attention, okay? What you have to do is make sure that your wives and your girlfriends are happy during hunting season. I mean, you should make sure that they're happy all year long, but especially during hunting season, make sure that they're happy. So butter them up a little bit extra. What I've always found that works really well is buying her some wine. So I buy a case of wine from Heron Hill Winery at the beginning of the season, and if I get through it, which we usually do somewhere around, middle November, I'll re-up and I'll buy another case. Heron Hill Winery is out of the Finger Lakes in New York. One of my best friends is the vineyard manager there, so that's why I started supporting them, but I keep coming back because I love their wine. The owner of the vineyard is a big-time hunter, and he makes some great red wines specifically that pair well with venison and game birds. My favorite is the Eclipse Red. It's a nice full-body red, and it goes great with any kind of venison. And their game bird red is great with any kind of game birds, but, they've got tons of wines. Go check them out. And they have a special deal for Hunt Suburbia podcast listeners. That's you guys. If you want to keep supporting us, please support our sponsors. And there is not a better sponsor to go out and support than Heron Hill Winery. Go to heronhill.com and use code HS5 for an additional 5%. So what they got on there is if you buy 6 bottles or more, there's a volume discount where you get 10% off. So with HS5, you'll get an additional 5% off, which they don't give to anybody else, just you guys. And if you buy a full case, which is 12 bottles for all of you mathematicians out there, you'll get 15% off from their volume discount plus an additional 5%. So that's 20% off total using code HS5. And also, any purchases of 6 or more bottles, it's free shipping. So they're one of the only wineries that have free shipping out there, and they'll get it right to your doorstep in these COVID times. And you can get it within a week of ordering it, and I really just can't tell you enough. Go out there, support Heron Hill Winery. That's heronhill.com, and use code HS5 so that we know that you're going there from listening to us, and you're going to go a long way to helping out this podcast. Heron Hill Winery, the official wine of hunters, and more importantly, their wives and girlfriends everywhere. Let's get into the winner of last week's raffle. And without further ado, congrats to Josh Razanowski on a free Onyx subscription. Congrats, Josh. Shoot me an email at huntsuburbia@gmail.com. We'll get you over a free Onyx subscription code, and you can use that in your scouting and hunting adventures in the future. We're also, next week, we'll do another Onyx drawing, and we'll go back to just, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, subscribe on iTunes, write a written review. All that stuff is going to enter you into the raffle for another Onyx subscription. And we're also going to give out a set of Big Woods Bucks books, since this podcast is with Timmy from Big Woods Bucks. And you'll learn how to enter that raffle at the end of the podcast. When you get like the monster buck, and so you've been on the track, did you go back the next day for that deer after you lost it at the end of the day? Like when you get those big monsters, they're so few and far between when you get on them. Aren't you trying to be persistent as possible to get back there and get that buck, or what?
Yeah, so I'll do that on a big one like that right there. And matter of fact, anything that I find that's over 200 pounds, a lot of times, I mean, I might put, it depends, but I might put 5 days into that deer. Just keep going back into there and checking his area and trying to find him and just trying to get on him fresh, you know. But I have been on, I remember one year in Ontario, I did that with this one big buck, and I spent probably, I mean, it had to have been 7 or 8 days, and I ended up getting close to getting him, but finally I had a few more days before I had to go home, and I'd been in the same place for, again, 7, 8 days, and it just wasn't working out. Drove just to a totally different spot, followed my nose up this road and into this place, and I think it was it might have been that afternoon I shot a 200-pound buck in there. So sometimes you just gotta completely switch it up and go try a different area. It's the bad part about doing that is those big ones are so hard to find.
Yeah.
It's really hard to walk away from them. But I will put in a lot of time on it, but I'm also understand that sometimes you just got to go and find a different one. Mm-hmm. And with any luck, you will. You know, sometimes you find another big one just like that, and sometimes you don't.
And you find that in those areas where you find a monster, there's probably a couple, 2 or 3 200-pounders that are more like the one that you got 217 in that area too, right? A lot of time it's just a big buck area.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what it is. You know, I'm sure you've heard Hal talk about it, and you know, in the big woods up there, the deer are in pockets, and you have 100% of the woods, but these big bucks, I feel, you know, and he says 10%, and I think he's kind of right. You know, there's 10% of all that country that these bucks really use. So I think buck habitat is buck habitat, and whether it's, you know, it almost doesn't matter what time of the season it is. It's like there's stuff there that they like, whether it's cover, water, feed, whatever it is, it's what they like, and bucks like it, you know? And the rest of it is, you might follow them through there, but...
Do you know it right away when you see buck habitat?
I'm getting better at it for sure. Yeah, like just
can you be driving and just be like, I gotta check this spot out?
Yeah, I'm figuring that out. Through the years, just learning, I've climbed some mountains up in the North Country that just driving down the road and just don't know anything about anything, and just, all right, where do I start? You know, I definitely I'm going to go up that mountain, and you spend till 11 o'clock getting yourself up there, and once you're there, you're like, why the heck did I do that? You know, that's definitely happened. So I've actually, in the area I am, and I've talked about this in some seminars, and I think there's a YouTube video on it, but I've broken it down to... I kind of start with mountaintops. So I'll drive down the roads and I'll look up on the mountains, and I think there's 3 types. There's ones that are going to be open hardwood.
Yep.
There's going to be solid green top, and then there's going to be a mix of both. Mm-hmm. And it's the ones that are mixed. The solid green top ones are really, really thick. I mean, I've gotten up on some of those. Me and my wife did it one time. We climbed up this one and, again, spent till 11 o'clock getting up there, 3,000 feet. And we got up there, and I'm telling you, Pat, that was so thick up there that... I mean, there's no way. There's just no way.
Now, is that a wintering area, do you think, maybe?
No,
potentially?
No, not with not up there with
snow.
Yeah, with the snow's deep up there. Sometimes it is for the moose. I've climbed up in there, like, it's a weird deal, but the moose seem to go up high sometimes on those mountains, and they'll live up there. But then, like the open hardwood mountaintops, the problem with those ones is hunting season comes, all the leaves are off, and it's
too open.
It's too open. You know, you'll follow them across there, they'll take you through them and stuff. But I like the ones that have, usually a lot of times they're green, might be solid green on the top, but that green growth kind of trickles down, and you'll have little areas of hardwood that'll mix in, and that seems to be what they like. So that would be my starting point. And sometimes, and I'm not, you know, having said that, it's not always I find them up there in that cover. There's a lot of times I'll, you know, find them halfway up that mountain. There might be some does, and they might have dropped down there 2 nights from the top up there, and they're hanging with that group of does. You know, sometimes that happens. You just never know. And
if there's a cut that borders that, is that good too? Like if you have all that you just talked about, and then there's a cut that is up next to it.
Yeah, definitely, because that's feed, you know. So a lot of those deer, they just, a lot of times they lay up in that green growth right on the edge, and then they come down at night and feed and chase the does around in those cuts, and breaks light in the morning, they go right back up in there, and that's their cover. You know.
Let's go back to, you said like switching up. Sometimes you got to switch the track. You just got to know when to get off one and get onto the other one, whether it's you find a fresher track or whatnot. And you talked about it the other day, and you hear about it all the time. You know, if you're just starting out tracking, you want to get into it, take a young deer, or if you don't see very many tracks and it's your only option, right? Take a smaller buck and see where he goes, and will he lead you into bigger bucks sometimes? Yeah,
so like I was telling you the other day, I really didn't do that a lot, years back, but last year I happened to do it 2 times. I was looking and wasn't finding anything that I wanted in new areas I'd never been in, massive country. So I just happened to pick up a small buck track and just, that's it, we're going to take them. And both times that I did that, before the end of the day, I was on a big one. Yep. And I think it's just bucks during the rut and stuff, they travel so much and they're looking for those pockets. And what it is even a small buck, he'll bring you to that pocket of does. So if there is a hot doe in there, maybe she's been hot for 2 days or something, well, that big smasher that you're trying to find might have come from wherever he was, and that little buck would just bring you right across him. And that's what happened both times, and it does work. So if it's a new area, if it's a place I've hunted and I know there's some cuts up in there and I kind of know where the does hang around, I might not follow a small buck to get myself up in there. I might just get up in there and go check it. But when it's a new area and I know nothing about it, like, I just let the deer show me where the deer are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
sounds simple.
It works pretty good.
Tracking in itself sounds simple.
Yeah.
Find a track, get on it until you see him, and then shoot him.
The hard part, sometimes that spot might be, 2 miles out from the road and up a massive mountain and steep and all that, so it might get you some time to get back there and stuff, but it does, like I said, the deer will show you.
That buck on video, 11, 15, 19, was he, did you pick him up after being on a younger buck, or that was one that you picked up? No, so
it was a little bit of a different story with that one. I only ended up in that place because it was probably 3 or 4 years before there. I was driving down through there, coming home one night, and I saw this huge buck track on the side of the road, and I was coming home to go back to work. Conditions really weren't getting that good, but I saw this huge buck track when I was cruising down through, and I pulled over and checked it out, and that buck was all over the place in there, and I drove right back to camp. I ended up staying. I called and canceled my work and stuff, because I found him, so I hunted him for a couple days and never did get him. I saw him a couple times on the road, actually, when I'm driving in the night. I was driving through there, and he'd come down off of wherever he was, and he was down in the road right there. I think there was some does down in there, and he'd come down.
You saw him?
I saw him.
Oh, yeah.
I think I saw him twice. He was a great big 8-pointer, beautiful buck. And like I said, I never got him, but I just always remembered that. And me and Jason got up there, and I didn't know where there was any big bucks up there. And
you were just like, oh, should I remember something?
Yeah, and I told him the story, and we checked a few other places, and we were driving through there, and I was just on a whim. I was like, you know what? We're going to pull over right here, and let's go take a hike up in there. And we hiked up in there. I bet you we didn't go half a mile, and boom, I found his track, and then I took it, and that led me into where all the commotion was going on. And like I said, he was in there for a couple days, and he was just a mess in there. He was all over the place, but
scraping stuff up and rubbing stuff. So you put a lot of this, the previous bucks that you've seen, and from all the miles and stuff you put on over the years, you'll store away things like that and go back to them when you happen to be in the area? Or how do you cycle through your spots, or where's your starting point? Is it based on where it's snowing at the moment? Like, what's
so yeah, it'd probably start with snow. So I'm going to go to an area where there is snow.
Yep.
So hopefully it's around camp. If that's where, and if it is, great, I'll go there. But if it's not, I might go to Jackman or up that, wherever it is. But starting point for me always the following year is just intel from the year before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this year, I'm going to go probably take a little quick run up in where I shot that buck. See if another one's moved in. That happens a ton. Again, buck habitat is buck habitat. You take the big one out of there, it's prime real estate. The next big buck will probably come in and take it over.
Yep.
So that's going to be the first place. But the buck that I shot, if you look at one of his points, he's got a broken point. And, I obviously had been in a fight.
Maybe
and
he's fighting a big one.
And the very next day, I think I found the big one that he had probably fought with. It was probably just mile or two down the road. So that's the buck that I'll go up there. It'll take me a day to go see if he's around up in there, and that's going to be the starting point. If that doesn't happen, it's pretty much just follow my nose, and I'll just run in and check places, and that's actually something worth noting too, is when you are trying to locate, I think that would be something that would surprise you, is how fast I move. I cover ground when I'm locating. I'm not taking my time, and I'm looking for deer, but I'm not trying to be quiet and still hunt, none of that stuff. I'm covering ground. Like I don't use a sling on my gun, but I might as well, because I'm just covering ground.
Yeah.
So I can cover a lot of area.
I've heard you got a long stride.
Yep.
And you put on a lot of miles, and it's tough for people to keep up with you.
Yeah, I do for my size, because I'm not a real huge dude, but I walk fast. Everything I do, you could tell me, Timmy, go grab that shovel, and I'm gonna walk fast. It's just me. And I do have a little bit of long stride for my size, so I can cover a lot of ground. But when I'm locating, that's one thing I'm doing, because like I said, they're in 10% of this massive area. And if you don't ever bump across that 10%, you can burn so much time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trying to find that if you're not moving. So I've learned definitely, and here's the bad part is, okay, let's say you do bump a buck. You walk in and you're not hunting slow where, you might, worst case, walk over there, give him a minute, and go take his track.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Like Hal says, take 30 minutes and have a sandwich and jump on him.
Yeah, that 30 minutes, and that's worth noting too. Let's chat about that for a second. That actually, I've shot 2 nice ones doing that, and that actually does work. And I had never thought to do that. And
for somebody like you, it seems like you want to get to you're tough sitting down. Those 30 minutes are probably 2 hours.
You know what I do is I start a fire. I do it every time, because I have to be busy. Like, I can't just, it might as well be 3 hours waiting 30 minutes. That's what it feels like to me. So I start a fire up, and I might have a little bite to eat, but just dealing with starting the fire, keeping it going for a few minutes, and you know what I mean? It's a way to keep my mind busy and keep me busy. But that 30 minutes is pretty important, because I've definitely made a lot of mistakes of going after him too quick. But I think what it is that 30 minutes, when you jump him up and send him out of there, I've learned with these big bucks, they're like an old man. They've learned the best way to do everything. You follow them. They always take you the best and easiest ways. And they're just, they're crafty and they're smart, and they don't do anything they don't have to. Sometimes they're even kind of lazy, So he's not, it's not like, maybe in the southern parts of the states where you jump a buck and the thing goes 2 towns away. That buck is a different breed, because he's pressured and he deals with this all the time. These big bucks up in the mountains like that, they don't deal with that, So you might jump him up, and he might not even saw you. He might have just heard you coming along and might think you're a moose or a coyote or whatever.
I'm sure he does that daily for something.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that buck isn't going to freak out like maybe even a younger deer does. The 2.5-year-olds, a lot of times those suckers will take you, you'll be gone. And it's almost like a young kid, It's like a 15-year-old kid. He's just full of energy, and and I'm over here thinking like I'm way too smart to do what you're doing right now. I'm going to say that, and the big bucks are kind of like that. So a lot of times what they do is they run up there and they'll stop and they just watch down their backtrack at, they might go up there 200 yards. But what I've learned is we've all seen it. A deer can see you and stand there and watch for you they'll stand like a statue forever, it feels like, right?
Long time.
It is. Well, he goes up there, and if you don't come along on his track, what it is, that buck, it takes that full 30 minutes for him to finally break his concentration to be like, all right, let his guard down. I guess it's nothing.
Yep.
I guess he's not coming.
Yep.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
And he just goes right back to relaxing. It depends on, what he was doing before you got him up. He might have fed an hour before you got him out of his bed. He's still got a full belly. He probably still wants to. He might have been with a doe for 3 days. He might be chasing and doing it. I followed those bucks before. They just keep on laying down. That buck is just tired. The one Hal shot this year, that big one he got.
Yeah.
That buck was just beat.
Well, Hal was on him 2 days straight, right?
Exactly. But you back it up 2 weeks before that. and put that buck in a different mood where he's all rested.
Sure.
You would have been on a 40-mile mission
Yep.
before you ever got caught up. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
You can tell what's going on with them when you get following them and playing with them. You can see like what kind of mood he is in, you know,
Yep.
and what he's up to. So like I said, there's a lot of times those bucks will just run up there. Hey, you know what? I guess it was nothing. And he might start looking for a place to lay down. And next thing you know, here I come walking around the corner and boom, done deal.
Right.
So,
yeah. Look, I hate ticks. You hate ticks. I know you hate ticks. I know your parents hate ticks. I know your kids hate ticks. We all hate ticks. You know what I want to do to ticks? I want to kill them. You know how you do that? Sawyer permethrin. Not only repels ticks, keeps them off your clothes, but if they do happen to get on there, it'll kill them. They only have to go over 1.5 inches of your clothing that's been treated with Sawyer permethrin to die. What's better than that? Maybe killing a big buck, but this is a close second. These guys are an amazing company. They're U.S. based. They're family owned and operated. Look for the yellow bottle. You can find them in Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, Dick's Sporting Goods, Moose Jaw, REI. Find them online. Whatever you got to do. Get Sawyer permethrin. It is not expensive. It'll save your life from these diseases that ticks carry. And it's a quick application. You spray it on your clothes, spray it on your hat, put it on your socks and shoes, put it on your backpack, let it dry outside in the breeze, and it dries odorless. The deer are not going to pick you off from putting this stuff on your clothes. I guarantee you. Get Sawyer permethrin. You won't regret it. You might as well get in there quick, jump something up rather than taking your time still hunting, thinking that there's a buck around every corner and never getting on a track.
Yeah. I think if it was smaller woods, you know, if we were in 20, 30 acre woodlots, you know, that's a different story, way different story. But up there, it's just so vast that, man, you got to get some ground covered and just locate.
What's the longest you've ever been on a buck track? You followed one for how many miles?
Oh. That one I shot with my old man that was a little ways. I think that was 7 or 8 miles.
Yep.
Yeah, that was 7 or 8 miles, I think.
Same day?
Same day.
And so, have you killed one where you went back the next day? On the same track?
I have.
Yep.
Yeah, one, I think. Most of the time, though, the majority of the time, when I get them, that day is the first time I even know anything.
First and last time you meet them.
Yeah, most of the time.
But like there are a lot of times, like more than you've killed, right, where you give up on a track. You have to, and you got to go back, and you don't get them that day.
Yep.
But you remember those. You just remember all the ones that you lost for the next year, right? Just in case you're back in that area.
Yeah. For sure. Oh yeah, I'm always cataloging and just again, it's so hard to me to be honest with you. I hope this doesn't sound bad, but it's almost like tracking them down is easier than just finding where there is one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you can't kill a big 200-pound plus buck if there's not a 200-pound plus buck around.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So the hard part for me is maybe I've gotten good at tracking it, good enough at it that maybe it is a smidge easier for me, but the hard part for me is just finding one of those. Once you find it, it's like the pressure's off. Now it's just getting the right conditions and the right day and get behind him at the right time. And, you know, I feel like my odds are a lot better than when you don't have one located. You know, now you're just burning time. And the other thing, too, is I'm freaking out when there's snow and it's good conditions. And I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like that because there's another part of it is you don't get those good days. I mean, you're lucky to get 2 or 3 good days through the tracking season. Most of the time you're dealing with, you know, there's no wind and the snow's gotten crunchy. It warms up during the day, freezes at night, and the snow gets yucky and so you're very seldom are you dealing with ideal conditions. So when you do have that, which is when I go nowadays, I wait for the conditions to be right. And there's another thing too. I became a dad. I don't have time now to, you know, take 2 weeks at a time. So what I do now is I stay home and I'll just be dad and work and do what I always do. And when the conditions get right, I'll scoot up there. Yep. And usually within 2 to 3 days, those conditions are not right anymore. That snows, like I said, it's warmed up during the day. It freezes at night. It's getting crunchy. Your odds are going down.
I thought you were going to say within 2 to 3 days, I'm on my way back with a big buck.
Well, with any luck. But you know what I'm saying? Like I don't burn my time up now when it's less than ideal. Yep. I wait for those conditions to get right. Yep. And that's when I scoot up in there. And like I said, a lot of times it's just 2 or 3 days. And yeah, and that's kind of how
your wife was saying something about when we a couple nights ago when we were up there that what did she say? a couple times when Timmy calls me and he's real excited about a buck, and it's like usually it's less than like 12 hours and that buck's dead or something. I forget what you said.
Yeah, there's been the last that big one last year, and I shot a 222 pound buck the year before, and both of those ones I called her up and I had found them both and called her up and I was like, hey, found a good one. And she's like, oh, cool. And both times, it was the next day, I went back up in there, got on their tracks, and shot them both. So now she thinks every time I call home and like, hey, I found one, I'm going to be calling it by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah, you got high expectations now. So how does it feel like being that kid, 22, and getting, reading the Benoits and Hal's books and watching all their stuff and listening to their seminars, and now... Last year you had a competition with Hal and you beat him. Yeah. He's not going to like hearing that. No. Again, bringing up those memories. But, I mean, that's probably somewhat surreal,
Very humbling. You know what I mean? Like, again, I just looked up to those guys, and I do look up to those guys so much. And I'm thankful for that. Like, I'm not me if it wasn't for them. Yeah. I'm just a product of what they put out.
And the people that are going to, like, learn from you aren't going to be you without them or without you. And it's a chain.
That's right. Yeah. But it's humbling. Again, sometimes I feel like I got to pinch myself, and like I can't even believe I'm in the spot that I am right now. But the flip side is this, and I'm like this in my trade. I'll get people that want to come and work for me and ride with me and just learn from me. You know what? Somebody gave that to me, and if I can be the dude to pass on some knowledge, then again, why should I take it from them and not be willing to pass it to the next?
There's going to be some people listening to this that you're going to inspire, and you will, without even knowing it, until they start reaching out to you. And
again, that's the humbling part. It's weird to me that anybody even cares enough about what I have to say to be willing to learn. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is. It's just a very humbling thing, but I'm very thankful to be in the spot that I am. And I'm my wife, I never realized about me, but she's like, you're just a teacher at heart, and I am. I'm one of those dudes. I'll give you everything I got. I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm not going to hold any little secrets. I'll give it to you, But
if your student doesn't give it their all, you don't, like you were talking about some clients, when you had the guide, you tried guide and you don't like it because nobody can keep up with you, and you can see somebody quit early on and not really give it the full effort.
Yeah, and that's the hard part about it, is like I look at tracking as such a successful way to kill big bucks. If everybody did it, we wouldn't have any big bucks, because it is. It really is that, the percentage of getting that buck goes up so much.
It's one of the few guarantees you got when you're hunting is that you look at that track and there is a buck attached to the end of it.
Yeah. But the problem is, it's like me, I'm a horseshoer. I go and I'm bent in half all day long, right? Yeah. And the thing is, you can look at that and think that's cool, but until you wear my shoes for a week and realize the back pain and all that goes with it, you might be like, you know what, I'm happy going right to my desk and whatever, right? So that's the thing with tracking is it's not for everybody, It's really cool to listen to and learn about and all that, and we have a ton of followers.
Fantasize about doing it.
It's intriguing. It's cool. It's
adventurous, man.
It is, It's something that's been around forever, and not a lot of people do it, and how cool is it to follow a buck track up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere when there's snow everywhere and shoot a 230-pound buck. Really it's cool. Awesome. It's just cool stuff. So whether you do it or not, it's cool to listen and watch and, learn about it and all that stuff. But there's not going to be, you could teach 1,000 people, and you're going to be lucky if there's going to be 2 dudes in that room or gals that are going to want to do that and really have that. It's like a Navy SEAL. Yeah. It sounds good, but boy, when you get into it, you're gonna weed out a whole ton of people before you find that one dude that has that true, drive to be that, and tracking is kind of like that in a way, because it is such hard work. Yeah. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah. Talk about kind of like a poetic Hollywood type backstory. You're a horseshoer. You spend your days looking at giant equestrian hooves, and then I bet you there's something to that. You do that, and then you're like, I want to go out and find a freaking deer track that looks like that. Stallion.
Yeah, no, I definitely. It's funny, a few years ago.
That's probably why you're so picky on the track too.
Yeah,
You're like, I'd see bigger feet than this all day.
Yeah, exactly. There is a little, similarity. Just the structure of a horse, Like I'll watch deer walk in deep snow, and that, like, you look at the front legs and the hind legs of a horse, like a hind leg of a horse has a hock, It's
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah.
So you look at deer sometimes, and they obviously have the same bone structure. And like deep snow, that's something I figured out. I just understand how a hawk works and how it makes a rear leg work. And sometimes when the snow gets really deep, and it's that powdery snow where he takes his foot out of it and everything falls in, and you just can't dig a print out and see that print. Well, I've learned when that snow is deep enough, I can look down in the pockmark of that snow and I can tell the direction the deer is going just because I understand the mechanics of how his leg works,
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah, so there's a little bit
cool.
of, there's a little bit of relation there.
Yeah, a little science behind it.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about what are the differences between Hal Blood and the Benoits, like, because you learn from both of them. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's similar. What are there any differences that you can think of?
Yeah, I think probably all of us have, we're probably 80% similar and maybe 20% different.
Yeah.
And that might be speed. That might be, probably the biggest, I'd say the biggest factor would be speed, determination. Any guy that's good that shoots bucks consistently tracking is a determined dude. He's already got that, but probably speed. And I guess what I'll do is I'll back up to Shane and Lanny.
Yeah.
Benoit.
Yeah.
Lanny is a very, very fast.
Long stride.
He's just fast.
Yeah.
He's fast through the woods. But that being said, Lanny sees everything when he's walking. And matter of fact, that's a perfect spot to touch on this. There's something you got to learn when you become a buck tracker is you got to learn to cruise the woods with your head up. That sounds really easy.
Yep.
When in the beginning of this, I knew it was something I had to do, and I remember the first 3-4 years, like I definitely would spend my days walking through the woods, telling myself, Timmy, keep your head up, get your head right.
Yeah.
And it took a little time
Because you want to be quiet in the beginning. You're like, I got to be super quiet.
Yeah, but the problem is if you can't cover ground and walk with your head up, that's the problem.
You're going to miss all the flashes.
Well, exactly. You're not going to see the deer. He's going to see you first. So that still happens sometimes, but there's an art to that. Lanny is really good at going and covering a lot of ground at a fast pace, but he doesn't miss anything. He sees everything.
Yeah, see, it's second nature for him. I remember one of the things that stuck out from their books, because I read them too, is memorizing your next 8 to 10 steps.
That's right.
You look up real quick, split second, look at all the sticks that are on the ground, the roots, everything you got to avoid, memorize it, and you got to be able to walk to that memory.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
probably
quick glance down again.
It's probably a little closer to 3 or 4 steps, but when you're walking along, and you got some, let's say, a log, and you got to step around a rock or whatever, in stride, you're scanning, looking for the deer, looking left to right. You can actually just glance down at the road, glance down in front of you, going left to right or right to left, whatever.
And you map it out.
Yeah, your mind will just make a quick mental note of that, and you'll know the next 3 steps to take, so you can get your head right back up and step over that log, around that rock, and around this bush.
You probably feel like it feels really good when you get in the zone doing that too, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like an athlete getting into his into his sweet spot. He's in this like Kobe, not missing any shots because he talks about the zone. And I bet you when you're on a track and you've got days where you've done that really well, you've memorized all your steps, you had perfect, and there's probably other days where you're just like, what am I doing? I'm keep breaking branches and keep everything, and you got to kind of slow down and be like,
yeah, that's day 1 and 2 of the season. It takes a minute to shake the cobwebs out, but. Yeah, no, it is a good feeling when you once you get the knack of it, and then it becomes once you get it, it's just second nature. That's
the woodsman, being a woodsman part of hunting. That in the suburbs there's a lot less woodsmen, and they're just people getting out into the woods, short walks. You don't have to think about all that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But being a woodsman is very important when you're a hunter, right? Like what else? What are some other woodsman skills that you need to get out on that track?
Navigation's one. There's probably one of the biggest things that holds people back from it. It's massive country and afraid of being scared, afraid of being lost. That's something that holds a lot of people back. And and I experienced that in the beginning. I had to, I remember this one time I was following this buck, and I think it was 1:30 in the afternoon, and here we are dumping over the next mountain down to the next valley. That moment right there, there's 99% of your guys are going to be like, well, it's 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Right there. Boom. Go right back to your truck. So
you knew you had another half hour? And
yeah, whatever it was, but just pushing yourself through that, just hey, just one step in front of the other. Put
Yep.
one foot in front of the other and just keep on going. Don't quit. You just keep at it as much as, whatever you have for daylight and time, and just pushing those limits right there. And eventually it just becomes like a second nature for you, It's yeah.
What about when you get to that point, when it is time to turn back and go back to the car? What do you do there? You just going as fast as you can, or you hunting your way back? Have you ever killed one on the way back?
Nope, I've never killed one on the way back, because that's, you're getting lucky and bumping into one. And
Yeah.
again, it's so big up there, like it can happen, but does it generally? No. Most of the time I've stayed on him so long, I know how long it's going to take me to get back to my truck.
Yeah.
So I probably followed him as long as I could, knowing that...
To the exact point.
Yeah. Knowing that, I've got to get going.
And do you take your same track back?
No.
Well, not always. Yeah.
It all depends on where very seldom, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'll just...
Get to the closest road.
Yeah, I'll take a GPS reading and see where I'm at, and that's what I do. But yeah, the problem is they take you, sometimes you're weaving in and out, you know what I mean? It's hard to backtrack yourself. You can do it, I guess, but yeah, it would take you, a walk that might take you an hour and a half. If you did that, it could take you 5 hours, So yeah, I've learned to rely. I kind of keep track through the day, and I don't check my GPS all day long, but I keep an eye on it. When I stop and I need a drink of water or something, I'll pull it out real quick and just see, west is still out, west is down to that road, and I'm parked over and I just mentally kind of keep an eye on it and know where I'm at. And I just use a regular little bubble compass. I don't use anything special, but I always know what direction is what.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's just part of being safe, and it relieves your mind of having to worry about that, because that's the problem, is you can't be thinking about that kind of stuff, because the task you got in front of you, tracking him down, is already hard.
Yeah.
And you can't be distracted with worrying about any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I've learned you got to just clear your mind. You can't be thinking about any of that stuff. You just
Personal stuff,
none
anything,
of
you leave it all.
Yeah, just leave it all. You pick that right back up when you get back to your truck.
Yep.
You set that weight right back on your shoulder then. But
Yep.
today, while I'm on this, there's no service, no nothing. I don't have nothing to deal with, and that's my focus.
Yep.
But it takes that focus. You gotta be in that mindset, of that's what you got to do. And speaking of mindset, there's one that something that helped me a lot too. And I know it's good. It takes some experience and some success to do this, but when you become a good buck tracker, you should feel like you're gonna get this buck. It's different than hunting in tree stands and stuff, because the difference that I see in it is, in tree stands and hunting that way, it's great and you can have success doing it, but that buck is in control.
And you did this year, had some success doing
Yeah.
that. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
But that's the big difference right there, is that buck is in control.
Yeah.
I'm waiting in a tree and hoping that he gets up on it.
Yeah.
When I'm tracking, I'm the one in control, and
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, if it's anywhere close to right, he's going to do everything he can to stay alive that day. And I truly feel that way. But what my point is, if you can get yourself in that mindset, you're a lot better hunter than if you're wondering, I wonder if this works.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, as soon as doubt creeps in,
That's right.
Yeah.
And I understand you got to get a couple to be able to maybe have that confidence, but when you, like I said, Hal hunts, when Hal's after a buck, Lanny, Shane, any of those guys, trust me, we all feel like, yep, he's done today.
Yeah.
And
you have to think that way.
You do.
Yeah.
And it makes you you're a better predator is what it is.
Yeah.
You got that confidence that this is going to happen. But again, I also understand you got to maybe have it happen once or twice to realize, holy smokes,
Yep.
this can happen.
Even in life, just life in general, if you think that way, then you have a better chance of getting to whatever it is you're thinking about, your goal. If you think it's going to be accomplishable, then you end up getting there. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy part of it,
Yep.
You've got to think about it. If you have any doubt, you're going in thinking you're not going to catch up to them, you're not going to be successful
That's
at that.
right. Yep.
Who is the best hunter in America right now?
Deer tracker or
Hunter. Who's the best hunter? And then we can go tracker, but tracker might be the best hunter.
Man.
I'm
gonna pick a tracker just because that's my word. And there's so many great deer hunters out there. I mean, Hal is at the top of that list, and Lanny Benoit is. I've learned so much from that man. Unbelievable buck tracker. He really is, and he almost does it with ease.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I've seen him do some stuff that's just, it's amazing. yeah, right there. I mean, you go in and look at Hal's no joke. Trust me, like that guy's the real deal. Again, I've learned.
Hal learned from the Benoits too, though, right?
No, he kind of figured it out more on his own. I think he read Larry's book.
And there's another guy, Bernier, right, or something.
Dick Bernier. Yep. Yeah, I haven't talked with him a whole lot. I was hunting up in Ontario one year, and I remember I passed him on an old logging road. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and he came driving by and stuff. But I don't know him a lot, but
yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna go with Lanny and Hal's right there.
What have those guys been up to? I haven't heard much about the Benoits since the father passed, and then one of the sons passed too, right? Lane.
Yeah.
Yep. I haven't heard much about them.
Yeah, I think they're out of. I'm not even sure if they're even hunting a lot anymore, to be honest with you. And I haven't been in touch with Lanny for a bunch of years. And I had a guy buy a muzzleloader that we were texting back and forth, and it turns out he was in the building trade, and Lanny was doing sheetrock, and he was working on the same job. Yeah, that guy was just through talking with him, texting. He was like, "Oh, Lanny's here," and he said he remembers hunting. Remembers this kid named Tim that was a horseshoer, and you know what I mean. So I was like, He's like, "Is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was me."
Did he ever take you hunting, or did you hunt with
them?
No.
So I went to Ontario and stayed with those guys, but we never hunted together. Yeah, we just shared camp and stuff. I did my own thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they did theirs, and. But I'm such a student of the game. I've watched their stuff so much, and I think sometimes when you might watch say a movie or whatever, you might watch that 3 or 4 times, but then you pick up the little details on number 5 and 6 that you watch it, right? Like I've broken their videos down so I've seen all the little detail stuff and the little things they've said that it takes you some experience to get to before you even can understand what they're, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. So, some of the little stuff, the little details. Yeah. So those guys, growing up in Vermont, I mean, that's when I first got curious about tracking it. I've been reading up on it for 10 years. Yeah. I really haven't had, the thing with me is I've had this thing where hunting at deer camp is what I look forward to all the time. It's just like the deer camp experience, our camp that's been in the family forever, getting your name up on a list for getting deer there and all that stuff. I have to get out of that mindset that's the only place I should be hunting. Because I want to get up on that list. I still go there for opening weekend or go there, here and there, but I'm starting to do more types of hunting and go in different places. Like down here, I'm learning the suburban hunting, but I am going to get out tracking. And growing up in Vermont, when I first looked into it, it was read up everything on the Benoits, and the Benoits is the legendary name. Larry was on the cover of what magazine? Was it Sportsman's Magazine?
Yes. Yeah.
Is he the best hunter in America? And he was at that point, and he just incredible stories, and they were the kind of the first ones that would make 200 pounds that's the goal for everybody getting on a buck. Get a 200 pounder
and do it consistently. Right? I mean, that's the hard part is almost any other style. I mean, you either got to donate so much time and have a lot of luck mixed in there to be that consistent. Like tracking is the only way that I've ever figured out that like you can be consistent in shooting 200 pounders year after year.
Yep.
And
again, you're in control of that track. You know that it's a 200 pound track when you get on it.
Yep.
But here, a big rack deer might be 150 or 160 pounds. It might be 200 pounds as well, but you don't know if he's going to walk by. That day.
And I just thought of it when you were saying, here's going to be a little trick. I'm going to put it out right now. So I've had guys like, how do you kill 200 pound plus deer every year?
Yeah.
And here's the answer. I don't follow anything unless it's 200 pounds plus.
Yeah.
I walk by those other tracks. If it's 160, 70, 80 pounds, whatever it is, now I recognize what it looks like. I just don't follow those deer. I look at it like this. You're going to put the work in either way. Following deer is hard work, okay? So if I'm going to put the work in, I might as well put it in on a buck that big. Right?
Yeah.
Versus one that's 160 pounds.
Output versus input.
Exactly. And there's stages in hunters' careers where that 160 pounder might as well be 240 pounds. To that guy, that's fine. Follow those deer.
Yep.
I graduated into, listen, I know what it is now. I know what I want. And I'm not putting the effort in unless it's on that. So that's what it is. And
you love tracking so much, and I can tell. And there's so much energy behind it. How do you still get the motivation to go out and bow hunt? Do you love bow hunting?
I do.
Yeah.
It's deer season.
Yeah.
I'm a hunter. I'm keeping myself busy, and I want to hunt anyways, but it's keeping me in the game until tracking gets here.
Yep.
And I still love it. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
I do. I love bow hunting. I've done so much of it through the years, and I just want to hunt. And
So Timmy's already tagged out in New Hampshire. Got 2 bucks with his bow. Started out with a 7-pointer. There's a funny story. You shot that one just so that your friend wasn't still on the top of the leaderboard.
yeah, we were in a bet. We had a buck pool going, and he tagged out first thing in the morning. That was opening day, and then that night I had to work that morning.
He was all bragging. Oh,
and
I'm
he
on
was
the list.
Yeah, he was bragging all day long. So I ended up going out that night, and I had a nice little 7-pointer come out, and I figured I'd knock him off the leaderboard real quick. So we did that, and then
Yeah.
2 days later, I ended up shooting that big one. You know,
This is a 10-pointer, right?
yeah, 196-pound 10-pointer. Yeah, he was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice buck. And I got his picture, so I knew he was in there. When I shot that 7-pointer, I had actually had a picture of that 7-pointer too, but when that was all done, I knew. I was like, yeah, that wasn't the big one. So I just went back in there 2 days later, and yeah,
Same spot.
same tree.
Yep.
Almost the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
How much did the 7-pointer weigh?
He was like 120 pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
Not a real big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is suburban New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just like around here.
Same
in a
thing.
Little Massachusetts hunter, suburban New Hampshire.
Yep.
Little patch of woods.
No, it's a pretty good
Yeah.
patch of woods, but it was a little small section of that big patch of woods.
Yeah.
Which is typical for around here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, same deal. That was a big swamp, right? That I shot those 2 bucks out of. I had shot one the year before in that same spot. And here's a little something I've learned from bow hunting around there is I feel like whenever I can take a buck from this certain area, and I'm going to back this up, especially in the early part of the season, if I can just go in and get a buck out of this spot, I feel like the following year, early part of the season, it's again the prime real estate, and you're just going to have the next group of bucks or the next big buck is going to take that over.
Yeah.
And it happens like every time. So I'm starting to catalog these places where, like, yep, I took an 8-pointer there 4 years ago. All I got to do is run out there and check it the beginning part of the season.
Yep.
And I feel like 99% of the time, the next, like I said, generation of buck has moved into that spot because it's that prime real estate that the bucks want, and they want what they want. They're different than does. So, like, the does will, be in a little patch out behind the field that they come out to every night. Bucks are a different deal. They're very different critters. Like I feel like hunting deer and hunting bucks are two totally different things. Like a buck is he's his own animal for sure. He definitely thinks the way he thinks compared to a young buck.
He just gets stupid for a couple weeks.
That's it.
Yeah.
And everything I just said about like that prime real estate, that all goes away when rut comes and all that stuff. Because now we all know it's just breeding.
And they go wherever the does are, and they might be right behind that field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it. But yeah, so I'm starting to put that together now. Is like I said, when I find those bucky kind of areas in that early season, I just work myself around in between those areas. I might stick a camera out there 2 weeks before the season and just hopefully get an idea that there is a good one in there, because it's the same deal for me. I don't waste my time if I don't know there's a good one in there. Once I find that good one and I know he's there, all right, game on.
Yeah.
I'll go every night after work, but I need that to know he's there.
Yeah.
I need to know
and
that
you're busy and you got a family life and you got kids
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And I'm learning that, it's like, this year, every time the season comes around, I get really excited and I go out early and I have to be in a tree, but you're going to have to pick the nights a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just, and pick the spots better. Get those bucky kind of spots that there's one around in there,
Seems like there's always a swamp involved when it's a bucky kind of
For
spot.
for me it is. And I can't speak for down here, but up and around my area, And I guess there's 2 ways to maybe bow hunt in the early season like that. You could, probably 3. You can either get close to bedding, close to feeding, or somewhere in between.
Yep.
I feel like the bedding and the feeding are usually pretty close together that time of year.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it, knowing that I was going to be on this podcast, but my instinct is definitely to go closer to the bedding. I did, in hopes that he gets on his feet. That's where, say that bedding area and then the feeding area is 300 yards away. Well, he's a smart buck, You might catch that one night where he's on his feet at 6 o'clock and you got plenty of time for him to make it over to the feeding.
Yep.
But I think I catch myself. I've always thinking back, I've always been attracted to getting as close to where I think he is without letting him know. And that's another really important thing too is, with bow hunting, and especially those big bucks, again, they're a different breed. A doe and a group of does and maybe a small buck, they'll tolerate a little bit of pressure. They'll tolerate, you might be able to bump him, her or him a few times, and probably you'll still see them, that little group, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll still, big bucks, man, I've learned it. They are such a different critter. Like, you don't get away with that with them. You know, and that's what I've learned, because I've done it before where I've walked in and found a sign and boom, there he goes. And then I spent the rest of my season sitting in there and never do see
Even
him.
in the suburbs, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those suckers, they just don't put up with it. And so now my approach is trying to find them, but to be as sneaky as I can be. Like, I'm very, very sneaky. Like, I don't even hang stands anymore. I use a climber.
Yeah.
I scoot right up a tree. First time ever being in that tree. I will run cameras sometimes, but even that I'm sneaky about. Like, I'll wait for a rainy day before I go out there. I'm dying to know what's on that camera because it's a week and a half from the season, but you know what I mean? Like, I've got that self-control only because I've been burned so many times on blowing him out of there by being too anxious like that. So I'll just wait for that wind to be right and a rainy day or know some rain's coming, and I'll sneak right in there real quick. And
patience, man.
Yeah.
Trophy Ridge products are intelligently designed to give you a distinct advantage and be deadly accurate. The team at Trophy Ridge believes smart, hunt-inspired innovation should be at the foundation of each product's existence. You have enough to worry about on a hunt. Your gear should not be one of them. Trophy Ridge accessories give you the comfort of always knowing you're using the best bow hunting equipment when out in the woods or at the range. For information on the all-new 2021 lineup of Trophy Ridge sights, quivers, rests, releases, and stabilizers, visit trophyridge.com. Trophy Ridge, the tools bow hunters trust.
Yeah, and the only reason is because I just, like I said, I feel like I know bucks well now, and I know what they'll put up with and what they won't.
Yeah.
And they just will not put up with.
I've been naive thinking that. I've been naive this year and last year, and I've still, like, right this moment thinking that, oh, you know what, you're in the suburbs, and that deer gets bumped by humans all the time, and there really isn't that much, there's not much area for them to go around here. That's their spot. Even if you bump him, he's going back there. Yeah. I still think that.
Well, we want to think that because you want to think that, like, he's in there the next time you go in, right?
Yep.
And the only reason I even said everything I did is just experience. I found him before and done that to him, and then sat and burned my season up waiting and never did see him. When times 5 years. All right, starting to put it together a little bit. That, like, you know what? But then, like, I'll grab my climber and go into a place the very first time, and boom, here he comes walking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm putting it together that's your best odds right there, is when you can be sneaky, not let him know you're even around at all, and go in there that first time. It can be the second time or whatever, but even just going in and climbing up in a tree and walking back out, that sucker comes out of that swamp and, 2 hours after dark and walks by your trail and smells that. Like, trust me, go in my house and, you know what I mean? Go in my house and move something or do anything in there. I'm going to know it. Yeah. He's the same way. He lives there. That's his home. So you go in there and cut a shooting lane or walk through there when nobody's been in there because it's first day of the season. Like, he knows. And again, sometimes you'll get away with a little bit, but God, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Be very, very careful. And the stealthier I am, I feel like the better success I have.
Does that even go along with calling? Like, you probably don't like to call.
I do a little bit, but, to be honest with you, I don't call a lot. Sometimes, maybe when the rut gets going a little bit.
You don't want to educate him, right?
That's what it is. I'm so, like, afraid of letting him know I'm there. I'm that guy. I'm the dude that's, and there's great hunters that call and have great success. Maybe it's just my nature because I have this perception of a buck now. I know what he is, and I've had a little bit of success doing what I do. So I gravitate to that now. Calling probably works great for the very next guy and is just as successful. But me personally, it's not a lot. But do I have a grunt tube with me and I hear him, say it's getting late October and I hear him starting to crash around out in that swamp, maybe, I might, I'm
try to get him in.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to that, but I'm definitely afraid of letting him know I'm there any way.
It's like Timmy Bolduc, the tracker, and Timmy Bolduc, the bow hunter.
Two totally different people.
Completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Like you're in the woods, you're going as fast as you can on a track, and you're not wasting any time. And you don't care if you jump them because most of your deer are probably running anyway when you shoot them. Last year was and you're a good shot. I see you roll tires and practice shooting moving targets. And
that's definitely something for anybody that is listening that wants to get into tracking. Definitely, that's one way you can help yourself. It's like shooting your bow. You know, don't go in there if you're not comfortable and ready. And shooting your gun, you can get really good at with some practice. And I did. I put a lot of time in because I was trying to be that Navy SEAL, right? And I knew I had to be. You got to shoot. If you can't shoot, I mean, you can track all day long, and if you can't hit them, then what's the point? So I've shot a lot of rounds and got good at it, and
second nature. And then and you and most trackers are using open sights, right? Or peep sight.
I use a peep sight.
It's rare you find someone that loves the scope, right? Or maybe it's not. I don't know.
I've met a lot of guys. I
feel like trying to get a moving deer through those thick woods with the scope can be.
It's not so much that it's dealing with taking care of the scope throughout the day in those conditions.
If it rains and snows, fogs up, all that stuff.
Half the time you got snow all over the trees, and he's taking you through. You're covered up in snow, so just dealing with keeping the reticle open on the. You even got to deal with the peep sight. I mean, I blow on those days. I'll reach down and blow out my peep sight.
Snow stuff in there.
Oh yeah. 20 times. But you just keep an eye on it. But that's a whole lot easier than wiping out this end and having all the wet and on your scope. It's just tough. But scopes can be really good. Like, okay, here's a perfect example. Lanny hunts with a scope. They can't see good.
Oh, he does?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he's great at it. But what he uses is a Trigicon. You ever seen one of those? A Trigicon scope?
Yep.
Yeah. So what it is with that is. Again, back up, like you said, well, a lot of times we're shooting at him running, so he gets up and goes, and you might only have a couple bounds to get a rip at him. But the problem with, like, a normal scope is you snap that up and go to put it on him. Your eye has to find fine crosshairs first, right? Yep. And then you put it on him and shoot. Well, there's a fraction of a second that's lost right there versus, like, a Trigicon scope where when you snap that up, it's a colored reticle. It's fiber optic.
Yep.
So your eye goes right to a color. So and I'm talking, it's a fraction of a second, but sometimes that fraction of a second matters. So if somebody did want to use a scope, like I would definitely recommend like a Trigicon with that fiber optic reticle in the middle, because it's just your eye will find that so much faster than fine crosshairs. So
well, I've used a scope my whole life, and I got a 7600 pump, and I don't know, 5 years ago I've shot 2 running deer with it, but I find out. Like you kind of like you pick it up, you see the deer moving, you look out in front, you find an opening that you're hoping that he bounds through, right? And that's kind of what I've had to do. It's like, all right, he's going there fast. There's the opening. There's a little opening through the trees. You lift there, and as soon as he gets in, pop. And I got lucky twice and dropped them right there. But they have to get through that spot, and I just feel like with the open sight, it's a little more like. I don't know. You can, without having to refocus every time, you can pump, get another shell out, pump, get another shell out.
Yeah. So I've shot bucks like you just described, where you're picking spots ahead of them, but they're actually, most of the time, I'm actually swinging with them.
Yeah.
So he's going through, because the hard part with tracking bucks is he goes and you might not have a lot of time, and if you do, in that moment, able to pick an opening, like it's a 50-50. He might make it there and he might not.
Yep.
So with me, like what I try to do is I try to get on him with my bead and swing with him while he's going. You know?
Follow through, right? I think you were telling me.
Yeah, exactly. Follow through. And what's nice about the pump, the pump action that we use in the 7600s and the 760s is I feel like when you run the action, so you fire at him and you jack that chamber open, and when you throw that pump back forward, as long as your eyes are on your target, that motion like brings the bead right back down on him, versus like a semi-auto, you deal with recoil, and now you've got to bring that tip of that gun, the muzzle of the gun, back down, find him again. I feel like the action of throwing the pump back forward, when your eyes are on something, it throws the barrel of the gun back down. Mm-hmm. So it's just a smidge faster to me.
Yeah.
And you're not dealing with the mechanics of a semi-auto. Like, I'm running so it's a little easier with the pump. And it's just so extreme sometimes with snow and cold and all. I mean, I've had times, I remember getting back to the truck, it's happened a couple times where I couldn't even get the chamber open to get my shell out to get into the truck. My gun was so froze up.
Yeah.
Now you take the mechanics of a semi-auto, and if some of that got inside there and all, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So yeah. So there's a couple different reasons why, but yeah, but that's how I shoot at running deer. And like I will shoot at them like you described sometimes if it's right. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, the buck that I shot last year that's on film, that buck right there, first shot was me swinging with him. Next shot, I just scanned ahead of him and I saw an opening. And I swung to that opening, and he came into it, and that's when I hit that buck.
Was he laying down at first, or
he was?
Yeah,
yeah, he was laying there, and I was just getting ready to touch off on him while he was laying in his bed looking at me, and I was just getting ready to fire off, and right when I was starting to put pressure on my trigger, and right when, like I said, it was about to happen, and he got up and went, so I swung with him and took my first shot.
He got up running?
He did. He got up. My first shot, he was on his feet, and I missed him on that shot, and in that moment, I just glanced in front of him a little bit, and I saw it because it was far enough away, and you could see in the video the woods. It was poles, it was like telephone poles everywhere, and it was a ways away. That's not a big deal when it's kind of close, but he was 90 yards out there. So I just in that moment I thought to look ahead, and I saw that opening, and what it was is right when I swung to that opening. And here he came into it, and it was just perfect. And we'll talk about this real quick. What it was is he was bounding, and he was coming down, landing on his front feet when he came into my sight picture where I was waiting for him, right?
Yep.
So, and that's a little trick on shooting at running deer. Like, you can shoot at them kind of, I guess, anytime you see them when they're going. But what you try to do is, when you're swinging with those deer, what they do is when they're bounding, they're up in the air, and it's kind of hard to hit them like that. But if you watch a deer bound, their front feet come down, and second they hit the ground right there, there's a fraction of a second that it takes their back feet to come down, hit the ground, re-engage, and drive back off.
So they're there for a longer period of time.
Yeah, it's that moment right there. There's a little fraction of a second, but what's nice about that fraction of a second when he's landing on his bound, so let's face it, how often is that broadside? A lot of times it's going to be going away from you, right? Well, we try to be as ethical as we can when we shoot these deer. So, but when he's going away, when his front feet hit the ground and his butt's still up in the air, that is just
open shot.
It's just as good as a broadside shot. I'm just coming in on another angle is all it is. And I've shot a bunch of them that way where, you roll their front legs and roll them on their back, and the shot is, up in between his front legs. But again, it's the same vitals. I'm just coming in on that angle.
Yeah.
But if you shot at him, in the air or starting to take off, that's hitting him in the back or in the butt or, and that. Yeah. So you really try to wait for him. That, like I said, that's the moment right there. And it's definitely a timing thing, and it takes a second to get used to, but if you can do it, that's the gravy right there. And you just send it right up underneath those hind feet and right up into his boiler room.
And do you keep shooting until they're down, or?
Yeah, I'm a shoot. I definitely shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much work, and when you work so hard for those opportunities that just
go through all five if you have to.
If you do, if you can, but and I don't want them suffering. I'm trying to make this as quick as possible.
Definitely.
Let's
talk about that. Like it's always an emotional thing when you kill a deer, right? You're taking a deer's life.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate that part.
Yeah,
I do.
I mean, it's like it's such a climax, but it's quick. It's like it's a rush. The adrenaline's up there. Then you feel a little bit of remorse right away, and then it's like during the drag and all that, you feel good again, and you got that story for life and all that, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's I think for new hunters who have never done that. And next weekend I'm going up to deer camp, and I'm taking my buddy. He's my best fishing buddy, and I always knew he'd be a good hunter, and he's finally taken the plunge this year, and we're going up. He actually gets to hunt novice weekend. It's a new thing in Vermont. If you've never hunted before and you're an adult, you can go out and take any sex deer.
That's cool.
Just like Youth Day.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we'll try to get him one, and I keep telling him, like, you don't know. He still thinks salmon fishing is going to be better, and trout fishing and all that. It gives him a better high, and I'm just like, dude, You'll see what I mean. It's like it's a feeling you've never had before.
That's right.
When you take a big animal's life like that, it's some gravity to it. But I would never give it up. I love the animals. I love how they taste. I love the experience they give me. And
and even setting goals for yourself to like, hey, I want to get a deer. And then when you know what I mean, that's a feel good just achieving your goal.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's a little piece of it right there that feels good. And then when you start setting your standards up higher and maybe you meet those goals, like that's a overwhelming feeling when it's taken you a year of thought and thinking and planning and all the stuff that goes along with it. And then when that moment finally does happen, like like you said, fishing maybe along the way might be funner, but I don't care how big that fish is. Will never give, at least me, the feeling of that 235-pound buck right there, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just, And I think that's a lot of it is the work and the dedication. And people like us, we're wired this way and we live it. Like I live deer hunting all year. I think about it. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. I think of it every day. You know, it's just who I am. It's my DNA. It's just who I am. So when all that build up to that moment right there, man, it's just a great feeling.
It is. And the payoff is just always worth it.
Yeah, it is.
And how long have you been tracking now? Since that first year when you got that first buck? Like
I said, it was late 90s, maybe early 2000, right in there. So I'm creeping up on,
every 2 years or so, 200-pounder over the span.
Yeah, 200-pounders. I've shot a lot of that were under 200 pounds, that I track. But my standards are different now,
right?
But back then, I shot a handful that were in the 190s and a few 180s.
That's
stuff
nothing
like that.
To shake a stick at.
Yeah,
I would be bucks. So happy with that.
Yeah, they were great bucks.
Yeah.
But now I'm, like I said, I'm just in a different spot now. And I had some of those years, like I did go without, but I also had years where I got 3.
Yeah.
Like one year I went to Ontario up there with Lanny and Shane.
Yep.
Shot like a 200-pound 8-pointer up there. Came home, shot a 212-pounder in Maine with my father, and then shot a buck in New Hampshire on the last day there. So that particular year, but then the next year, didn't get any. So the average is out. It kind of averaged out till almost one a year in a way. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That buck last year that you shot, just talk about how that thing looked completely different in the woods compared to any other buck that you ever walked up on. I mean, that thing, because I want people to go see the rack. I want them to see, we'll post a picture of it, but I want them to go watch the video. And that rack kind of went straight up and straight out. It was
so unique.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing was so unique. I'm sure you can imagine the feeling of walking up on it, right? I mean, it was just, to be honest too, like, I'm just going to be honest. That was the first time ever being filmed. Like, me and Jason had hunted together a couple times. So you mix that in there with it too. Like I'm in front of a camera and trying to make a video for people. And, the whole thing, it almost, like now looking back, it almost feels like kind of like a blur in a way. Like I remember all the feelings, but it was so unique because, like I said, I was in front of the camera and trying to deal with that moment of walking over and picking this thing up, but also keep my words right for the, you know what I mean? For the video, So
it's hard enough to kill one tracking, you say, and then you had to add in the first time with a cameraman.
Yeah,
I mean, it was probably a little unbelievable that.
I think I know one thing that I thought right away. I remember when I grabbed his horns and I picked his head up, and from the back, I do some shed hunting stuff, and I found my share of sheds. But I remember thinking, like, when I picked that up and that view from the back where his horns came out of the, the bases where it came up, I remember thinking, like, if you ever found that shed, you would just think to yourself, like, what is that? You know what I mean? It almost didn't look real, just the way it came so straight up out of his head for a foot.
Yeah.
Which is so odd.
It doesn't look like a whitetail, really.
It almost didn't in a way, especially from that angle in the back there. But I remember thinking that, like, is this real? Like, is this you know what I mean? Like, is this even real? But then, like, half a second goes by and, like, this is actually happening. Like, it is. And this is what he looks like. And all right, I got to do this quick interview and, you know what I mean, for this video and stuff. And, so it was just, like I said, it was a lot to deal with in that moment right there. But it was fun at the same time. But it was more, I think, it set in the aftermath and in the hours and the days coming after is when it really sunk in that, like, that was a special one right there. And then to get it on film, like we did, like, it's just, if you could pick a deer, you've been in my room. I mean, if you could pick a deer to get on film, I mean, that's the one.
That's the one. And I really like your placement of that buck in that room because we were looking at it and it's right next to this beautiful 8 or 10, that
10-pointer,
a 10-pointer that curves right around and his tips are almost touching. And then you got that one, and it just shows the difference in racks.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I love whitetail so much is that every single rack is different.
Yeah.
It's like a fingerprint. Right?
Yeah, and it was just unique, and what really hit home too. And I remember when I came home with it, because word had got out. I told my wife Andrea, and and the word starts spreading around. You got this deer. Well, I got home with that thing, and I mean that night when I got home, what a blast! It was like when the premiere the other night, but times 30 more people.
Yeah, how many people came by?
Yeah, just tons.
Yep.
It was just a great night, and people just wanted to see it.
Yep.
And so they all came over and stuff. But I remember my father saying to me, like, "This is gonna live way past you."
Yeah.
Because he knew he got it on film and stuff, and it took him saying that to me for me to realize really what we had done.
Yeah.
It was one thing to get it on video, get a deer on video like we did, but to have it be that deer and that caliber of a buck and that unique of a buck, it was just so many stars aligned for that right there. And like I said, it was that moment that Dad said to me, like, do you even know what you did? Like, do you realize, like, this is such a huge part of your legacy, and it's gonna just live way past you. And right there, I was like, man, that really was that unique of a deal.
Yeah, I think up until now we were kind of underselling it on this podcast. I mean, it really is just everybody's got to go see that deer. Go to the Big Woods Bucks YouTube page and watch that video. I mean, just an awesome deer.
Yeah.
I mean, nicknames for him could have been like Slugger or Ted William, whatever, something with baseball bats. I feel like. But just an awesome deer. I mean, he's got a huge neck. I'll post a picture on the Instagram as well. But I don't know, what else do you want to talk about, Timmy?
I don't know. You're in charge. You tell me.
This is my third one today.
I know,
I'm
you're
running out of questions.
Probably burnt out. Yeah.
No, I love talking hunting. I really can do it all day long. And actually, I like doing this back-to-back podcasts like this. Cause it helps me get into a groove too.
Maybe we could touch on, I guess, maybe anybody listening to this thinking about getting into tracking, like, I guess hopefully to inspire you to just go do it and go try it and see if it does fit you and something you do like, and know that you can be good at it with the right attitude and putting the work in. Yeah. And I will promise you this, anybody that does look up to that style and does have that drive to do it, it's one of the most satisfying ways you'll ever, take a big buck, and it's a fun way to do it. And I guess what I mean by that is hunting's fun. Sitting in a tree stand is borderline fun for me, the hours and logging the hours. Yeah. So when you hunt that style, I think at the end of the season, you have a perception of what hunting is, because this is right. Yep. Tracking is a very different deal. You're on your feet, you're moving, you're living the life of that buck is what you're doing. You're going through his day. And you learn things about him that stuff they feed on, what they eat, where they bed, what they like, and just what he does through a day. And seeing hunting from a tree stand, you can't really do that. You're guessing at it, and you might get your intel from what you get for camera pictures and all this different stuff. But when you follow a buck, like I said, you're living his life, and you learn a lot about these bucks and how they operate and like what just makes them tick and what they do and the mystery of, what they do. And it's just a fun way to hunt. So, if you do happen to be one of them guys that's got some grit to you and, hey, it looks cool, go try it and check it out. And you never know, you might be the next big thing.
And you can do both things and have fun doing both things. Like, you don't have to be just a tracker or just a bow hunter and tree guy. Jeff Paradis, same thing. Yep. Right? Like,
me, I do the same. Yep. When it's tracking, I'm tracking, but if it's bow season, I'm bow hunting.
Nothing better than hunting, just get out and do it.
Exactly.
Yep. If you want to get into tracking, read some books. The Big Woods Bucks guys, you got to write a book one of these days here.
Yeah.
You're getting
Matt,
up.
Yeah, Matt Breton actually mentioned that to me one day. He's like, I'll be a ghostwriter for you, because the problem is I talk so fast anyways that I've learned I've written a few articles and stuff, and man, my hand just won't keep up with my thoughts, you know? So I don't know how good I could do, like, actually writing a book. But
just talk to somebody like this, do a bunch of podcasts in a row, and then go back and listen to it and write those stories out.
Yeah, I feel like I got enough now, like I could help people for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and again, we're kind of a lot of the good guys are a lot the same, but we definitely have those differences.
How old are you?
I'm 42.
Yeah, so you're a young guy still, and Hal taught you. You've still got 20 years or so. How old's Hal?
Hal's like 63 now.
Yeah,
I think.
so 20 more years to get to Hal's age. By that point, I mean, you're going to have the same amount of knowledge and want to pass it down.
Yeah.
And I was talking with the guy that was in here. You saw him that was leaving when you were coming in. Big dude. He played professional baseball. And he, was talking about the prime of a hunter's life.
Yeah.
Your prime can be when you're 50, 55. It can be like you might get into your best stretch of hunting in your late 50s, early 60s, like Hal's doing right now.
Yeah.
And that's what's awesome about it. Yeah. Even if you start when you're 42. If there's some people listening right now that are in their 40s and this is their first year, and that's what's great about it. You can pick it up when you're 40 and still be extremely productive, and 10 years later be the best hunting years of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's great there's guys in their 40s that are turning to it, We need more of that. I was brought up in it, so it's always just been my world, like it was never, I didn't have to get introduced, but.
Well, more specifically, the suburbs, you grew up in a place, Hampshire's not much different than Vermont. Right. You grow up and that's the culture. I mean, every household in Vermont has a gun, and I think like 80% of people, 80% of households buy a hunting license. It's just that's the culture there. Mm-hmm. But suburban, there's some, this is a Hunt Suburbia podcast, but again, we're going to talk about all kinds of hunting throughout the life of this podcast. I love all different types of hunting, but growing up in the suburbs, a lot of people just aren't growing up in that culture.
That's
Their
right.
parents never did it, so they never went out and took an interest. But now they are.
Yeah,
I think COVID is helping pushing that along a little bit.
I agree.
People wanting to get out of their houses and do something.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah,
it really has.
And I'm telling you, dude, your prime is ahead of you.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
I to be honest with you, I can feel it. I can feel like I'm in my stride, and I'm a different guy than hunter than I was 8 years ago.
Yeah,
for sure.
You're gonna learn stuff every single year, and every time you go out, still you're gonna learn, and that's why I think being a hunter is so much of it is experience and accumulating knowledge. So
exactly.
The older you get, I mean, just the more you're gonna learn. Yeah,
and that was another thing with me too. Is I've watched some guys that looked up to Hal and Lanny and whoever as far as tracking and wanted to get into it and weren't open-minded enough to set aside their own opinions to listen. And I was exact opposite of that. I was one of those dudes, I shut my mouth and I just took it in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I didn't go in with any like, oh, well, I don't need to wear wool because I just bought a new scentlock suit. You know what I mean? It was just, I was that guy that just like, I went in as a blank sheet and I let them create.
Yep.
And I just learned from their mistakes. And to me, like, I've always been that person, like, if I don't get to go through it and learn.
Coachable.
Right?
Yeah.
Very coachable. So anybody that is looking to get into this, just know that that's a good spot to be right there.
Hundreds of years of this have gone into...
Let them
the formula.
Let these guys shorten your learning curve because if you're willing and you are who I just described, I mean, I'm the perfect example. I shot the first two bucks I ever tracked. Hal, you talked to Hal and it took him 7 years figuring it out. And the very next guy, and it does. But again, if you can be that person, just be open-minded and just. These guys have gone through the work. They figured it out. This is what works. Just go with it and trust the system. And again, it'll shorten your learning curve if you can sprinkle in some determination and some skill and some woodmanship and all that stuff along that goes with it. You can be that person.
Yeah,
so
it really does. And so read the books. I mean, Hal's written a couple of books. Mark Sheeran on the team has a book. We actually still have a set that we'll raffle off. We'll actually do it this podcast. Like
it's a great, perfect podcast to do it.
Yeah. So the next, we'll edit in something and I'll tell you what you got to do to enter the raffle for next week. But we'll raffle off a set of books. Listen to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. There's a lot of great knowledge there too. I mean, it's Hal's stories and Lee and Joe are both really experienced hunters too, and they're on there a lot of times. Timmy, you got to get on there couple more times.
Yeah, I've been on twice already, and to be honest with you, I was very uncomfortable on both of them. This right here, just for the record, most comfortable I've been in a podcast.
I was thinking about that earlier. I mean, still, and you go to that podcast, you're still looking up to Hal, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Hal's the boss, and Hal is and rightfully so. He's the man in the room, right?
Yep.
You're the man in this room.
Well,
like I'm looking up to you. I'm trying to draw the information out of you.
yeah.
So it's a different feel. That's why.
That's pretty easy though. You know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like
You're
I said.
so willing to share. That's why you got to write a book. I think that would be great.
Yeah, maybe down the road one day. We'll see. You know. Well, yeah, we'll see. I'd love to. I wish I could put all my thoughts and what I know on paper in a form that is a good read. I'd
Yep.
love to. You know, maybe one day we'll figure it out. You know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I still got a few more years. Probably I should learn some more stuff, I guess. But,
Kill a dozen more 200-pounders.
yeah, we'll see. You know, with any luck. Hopefully this year.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So you're getting a cameraman again this year to follow you, right?
Yeah, Jason, my same cameraman.
How do you schedule that, or is it like, hey, Jason, be ready whenever the snow comes?
Yeah, so this year's going to be a little bit different. He was a smidge more flexible last year. This year, he's working at a job that he didn't really have a lot of seniority in, so he has the first week in December off, and that's a little bit late in the season for me to be waiting around and hoping that, you know, so, but I'm hoping maybe, like, we might maybe say get a storm on a Thursday night, something like that. Maybe he can take a Friday off, hunt
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday. But this year, if it's going to happen, it's going to kind of have to go that way.
Yeah.
I
So
gotta-
there is a possibility if there's snow flying and he can't make it, you're still going hunting, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, definitely. I want to get it on film. I'd love to do it again. Trust me, I'd love to do that, but I'm still just me.
Yep.
And
Yeah. It's not everything.
I wait all year for it, and I'm doing me, you
Yeah.
know? So hopefully he's there to come along and capture it, and I'm going to do everything I can to try to make that happen, but I'm not going to miss out because he's at work.
Had you ever met him before? He followed you last year?
No, it was a neat deal how that worked.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw at the end of that video where he had wrote that little...
Yeah, that was cool.
It was, and the story behind that so Chris had got an email from him, and, you know, I can't remember word for word what it said, but it was pretty much... You know, I follow you guys, Big Woods and the team and all you guys. I'm kind of a newer hunter. I've been hunting for whatever, it was 7-8 years, whatever it was, taking a few deer, but I just really look up to you guys. And if one of you guys on the team were ever looking for a cameraman,
Yeah.
I would do it for free
Yep.
just to learn.
Yep.
And Chris forwarded me the email, and I remember I read it, and I sat on it for, you know, I don't know, I sat on it for half a day or a day, whatever it was, and... You know me, I'm a talker anyway, so I guess that next day, after thinking about it for a little bit, I just called him up, and I wanted to feel him out a little bit, so I called him up and talked with him for a little bit and asked him, you know, what kind of shape you in and all that stuff, and
Did he keep up with you?
oh, no problem at all.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
just perfect.
Yeah, so anyways, at the end of that conversation, I had said to him, like, I just need a minute to think and I'll be in touch with you or whatever. And I think, like, I sat on it for same thing, half a day or a day or whatever. And I called him up and I'm like, dude, we're going to do this. And it was kind of funny because after I had said that to him, within days, we had got another email from a different cameraman that had way more credentials than Jason did.
Yep.
Like, this guy had gone to school for it,
Yep.
had better cameras and all
Yep.
this stuff. And I remember Chris sent me that email. He's like, this is the guy you should have. And I'm just an honest, I got you back kind of friend dude anyways. And I had already, just a day or two before that, committed to Jason. And I sat on it for a little bit. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I talked to him and it felt right. I can't explain it, but it just felt right.
Yep.
And I told Chris, I said, I don't want the new guy. And he's like, you sure? And I said, nope, I'm going to take a chance on him. And I did. And I stuck with it. And
Awesome.
yeah, stuck with.
And in a scenario like this, it's not necessarily the guy with the more credentials that's going to be better anyway.
Yeah.
It's fit, and if he's, you know, he was a hunter. I don't know if the new guy was a hunter and really knew what he was getting into. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. And looking back now, like, Jason's almost one of the only dudes that's ever been with me that it's just, you could forget about it.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had to think about, you know, like, oh, I got to wait for him. Or, like, Jason,
He was just there. He was
I do
shadowing
me,
you.
and he's there.
Yep.
It's
And
that
that's
simple.
That's perfect. That's
Yeah.
how you want it.
And it just worked.
He's
And
killed some big bucks too, right? Is he the Jason that was on the podcast and
Nope.
talked about? Okay.
That's Jason no, that's the other one. Yeah, but
Right.
no, this Jason, he's got a handful of bucks, but
Yeah.
not any real big smashes yet. But
Yeah.
he's gonna.
He will.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
He's going to school following you.
Yeah, he definitely is coming, and he's got it too. He loves it, and he's gritty, and yeah, he's gonna be. It's coming down the pipe for Jason. But it turned out like, and now, we're friends. We talk all the time and stuff. It ended up being like a friendship, and it couldn't have been any better.
It's one of the best things of the hunting community, man. You reach out. That's how I got involved with Big Woods Bucks too. I was like, listen, I listen to all your podcasts. I've read the books. I've got your all your woolies and everything, and I do that stuff for a living. I'd sold ads for podcasts, and let me help out. I don't want anything. I just want to help. I want to be involved with you guys because what you're doing is great. You're teaching a lot of great people. I'm going to learn from it, and I think a lot of the hunting community is that way.
That's right.
Yep. You're this big star now.
Yeah, right.
But no, like people will think like Hal is like this big unapproachable guy, and all these no, the hunting community, no matter how big of a celebrity hunter in air quotes that you are. Like, you're still that down-to-earth hunter, and I'm sure you'd answer an email if somebody sent you and all this stuff, right? That's what's so great about the community.
The hunters are some of the nicest and best people. They really are. Like, dealing with the Woodman Arms, I talk to so many guys. Like, my phone, if you were with me for a day, you'd just laugh at the amount of calls that I deal with. And I end up on the phone with them just chatting it up, and everybody, like, they're just good people.
Yep.
I'm sure you could break into another world of professional baseball or something, and 60% of them are kind of D-bags, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, and you just people that hunt are just usually really good
Genuine.
people. Solid good people.
Yeah, how many people that were at your premiere the other night that you'd met through hunting? I mean,
every one of them.
Yeah.
Pretty much, other than Al.
One of them was a game warden you met near just your local game warden.
Yeah.
Becomes a friend. Was the other guy, Roger, who said that your strides are so long he couldn't keep up with you. You had to look back and
he came and bought muzzle loaders, and he had bought 4 or 5 of them in one batch, and he came to pick them up, and we ended up hanging out that night, eating dinner, and had a few drinks and stuff, and been hanging out with him ever since. You know, just made a good friend. You know, but I'm friendly anyways. I like that, so yeah. I'm really easy to be a friend with anyways, but yeah, just like I said, I feel like tons of them. You, perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like we know each other
right?
already.
This is the second time right here, and it's like, cool. I'm going to be talking to you probably for the rest of our lives, right?
yeah. I'm gonna be following you and everything you're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me talk about this stuff on here.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to.
Yeah, I know it's primarily bow hunting and stuff, and just for the listeners, I'd asked Pat at my house on the premiere night, I'm like, you gonna let me talk about tracking? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, good. It's
funny.
Big relief. Thank you for letting me do it.
I just named it Hunt Suburbia because I live in the suburbs, and that's what I'm trying to figure out myself, Yeah. And I think it's a pretty good name. And
great name.
And there are a lot of, if you look at the suburbs, you got a pool of, the majority of America lives in the suburbs. You get a big population of people who don't normally hunt. Like we said, they didn't grow up in the culture.
Yep.
So if we want to convert more people and you want to bring new people into the fold, the suburbs is a great place to kind of start. Also, you got that mix of habitat where there are some big bucks in the suburbs. There's still some woods that you can hunt, small patches that you can hunt. It's not the city. It's not the concrete jungle. There's places to do it. So there is opportunity. And that's why, I started it with that name, but I have to talk rifle hunting. I have to get into tracking. It's gonna be a lot of different.
Well, you're doing a good job with it. I've told you 100 times. I'm going to say it again.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it. From the first one I ever listened to, the first one that I listened to personally was Jeff's.
Yep.
And right there, I don't know, it was just one of those things that flows nice, and it's an easy listen. And just keep doing what you're doing because it's pretty good. It's really good.
Yeah, so. And that's why I like having somebody in person in front of me.
Yep.
It's different. Like a lot of podcasts, by necessity, there's you got to do the phone call or Skype or something, and
right.
I don't think it comes through the same way as having conversation face to face. So I really appreciate you driving an hour and a half down here.
Yeah, we were supposed to do it for everybody listening. We were supposed to do it the night of the premiere, but
I knew that wasn't going to happen anyway. I mean,
I was planning on it.
Yeah,
but
I didn't go up there with any expectations of it.
You know what? I was so nerved up that night; it probably wouldn't have been that good anyway. I'm sure you could tell.
I still love I went live from the Big Woods Bucks Facebook page for Chris, helping him promote it before, and got Timmy tail end vacuuming, nervous vacuuming his room.
Yeah, I could have done 5 miles in that house that night. I'm telling you, I just needed things to do.
Yeah.
It was a lot of build up, and it was a lot of it was nervousness for me because I just wanted people to like it.
Yeah.
And I knew there was a lot of people that were waiting for it, and I guess my biggest fear was when they saw it, it was going to be we waited all this time for that.
Yeah.
But it turned out, I knew I liked it and I knew how I felt.
Yep.
And and I was like, man, am I just being biased because it's me and it's my film? Or, but I showed it to like just 3 or 4 people. I think it was, I showed it to my dad and mom, a buddy of mine, John, and I think one other person, my buddy George. I showed it to just a handful of people before, and all of them were like, they liked it, and it was funny. Every one of them looked at me like, man, I can't wait to get in the woods. And I knew right there, I knew like, this is the kind of video when you're done watching it, it's going to fire you up and get one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I just thought of it. This is how you're going to enter the raffle for the Big Woods Bucks books for next week. Go to Timmy, go watch that video on their YouTube page and comment under it that you're entering the raffle, whatever you heard about it on the Hunt Suburbia podcast, and tell Timmy what you think about the video. So we'll draw it from one of the comments that mentions you heard it on the Hunt Suburbia podcast.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's how we'll do it. So
yeah, do that, and you pick it. How's that? I'm gonna let you pick the pick the winner, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'll pick it. Cool. All right. Deal.
Good deal, man.
All right, Timmy. Thanks, man.
Dude, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Hunt Suburbia podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to release an episode every single Sunday throughout the season, throughout the entire year, and we will possibly be releasing some bonus episodes here and there throughout the week as people, come in freshly off a bow kill and tell their stories. We hope that happens throughout the season. There might be weeks where you get 2 or 3 bonus episodes. You might not get one for a couple of weeks, but there will be some bonus episodes. But you can count on us every single Sunday to have a new interview on throughout the season. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Big bucks I've been dreaming often, every night till I'm in a coffin. Vermont woods to the burbs of Boston, I'm looking for a tree to get lost in. Crisp mornings, little dust in the snow. Quality time, just me and my bow. Fall evenings, I know just where to go for some quality times for me and my bow. It's just me and my bow.